That's what we're celebrating today. And what does that mean for us today? No less than it meant for those people on that first Pentecost. A friend of mine brought a book up to me. It's called The Box. It's a relatively new book. You can get it on Amazon. It's written by Bill Bishop and a statistician by the name of Robert Cushing. Very interesting book. In that it records how we've changed in the United States in the last 30 years, and how now today a political pollster can just bring up a zip code and know that that is the people that they ought to be interested in, that's their base, that's where the people live that belongs to their party. And they go on to point out that we have segmented ourselves as a society as never before. And because of that, we understand a very small portion of reality and we implant it upon the rest of people. And that it has diminished our understanding of each other as well as the world. And that it is broadcast into this society great divisions and extremism on both sides of the spectrum that have no way of talking with one another. In fact, very few people talk outside of their box. And that it's meant in the political world a stalemated legislation. In the economic world, it's meant that people who have a lot of money have been able to work to where they can continue to have more and more money, and other people are going to have having less and less money. And the society becomes bifurcated and split up on little blocks. And they go further, as they do in the book, that people have little understanding of other people in the different segments. And that this is the world that you and I live in. And notice that we live in a particular zip code, but our church is in another zip code, and they speak a different language, treat time in a different way, have a different kind of history. We were talking with some people the other day about homeless, and one of the persons there went on and on and on, could hardly stop them, about how terrible homeless people were. There were a bunch of drunks and a bunch of dope addicts, ne'er-do-wells, worthless, trying to live off people, etc., etc. I mean, there was hardly anything in that person's rhetoric that had anything but condemnation for people who are homeless. We had occasion to introduce the people around the table there to a woman with 2 children who was trying to make it, trying to work, could not make enough money to have an apartment, sometimes lived in an old broken down car, sometimes lived under a bridge, trying to protect her children. She was a teetotaler. And this makes up about 30% of our homeless population. And the group began to talk a little bit about the fact that homeless people are not all one kind. After the conversation was over and we were gathered in the larger room, it was interesting to hear that this person had a group in the corner telling them how all the homeless people were a bunch of drunks and dope addicts and we're trying to live off of it. Never heard, never saw. But in so many ways right now, we're ministering to a society that is segmented. Ears are shut. But that's the ministry that we have before us, is it not? The Methodist Church has adapted this phrase now, rethink church. What if a church was thought of as a verb rather than as a noun? I attended the first meeting of the Ecclesiastes project that the district superintendent here has called forth to have all the churches in the central city to begin to meet, the ones that are having difficulties, and to share. And we'll have a special meeting in June and invite people from the congregation to attend. It'll be over at Hyde Park, and I'll get that information out to you. But they're talking about ministry now in this day, in this time, in this situation, about rethink church. And one of the people brought up one of the ways to think about this is to think about not having a building. If you didn't have a building, maybe you just had a vacant lot, or maybe you didn't even have a vacant lot, what would you do to be church? How would you church to this world today? How would you reach out to people whose ears are stopped up? How would you show love and compassion to people who are really angry, who are driven off of their anger, who live in fear, who find themselves shut-ins, not in a geological sense or a geographic sense, but in a spiritual sense. And you know, the amazing thing is that there are people all around us that are reaching out, that are creating the new. I was reading just the other day about a ministry of skateboarders. They have a place in the city where people congregate to just do skateboarding. And a couple of ministers there have church. And they sing songs and they have them discuss among themselves and minister to each other. Rethink church. What would we do to have church? To be church? To do church? Well, it's going to be an exciting conference, I think, and some excitement this new year. As we proceed in this time of Pentecost to do church. Let us pray. Oh Lord, grant to us your powers to perceive what it is we are about, to minister in new ways, to think outside the box, to give ourselves to your Son, Jesus Christ, in compassion and love, to bring about change, to end war, to bring peace, to end poverty. Fill us with your Spirit. In Jesus' name.